The year was 2003. I was working as a rep, so spent a lot of time traveling within a 100-mile radius of my home and working long hours. I had been at work this particular day from approximately 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. when I started my journey home. The month was February, so here in the UK it's pretty dark at that time and the weather is miserable. I took the M42, no street lamps, my usual motorway, and it was chucking it down. Heavy rain for our American friends. I was coasting in the middle lane when I had to overtake a lorry to my left and a car to my right came up alongside me. At this point, with the rain splashback and dark, I couldn't see anything. I was totally blindsided and sandwiched between the two vehicles. In that moment, I just knew this was it. I'm going to crash and die. When they say your life flashes before your eyes, it really does. I had images of my childhood, my child, my wedding, and important events in my life play like a movie in my mind. Then, all of a sudden, I was in the left-hand lane. The motorway was lit up and there were no more cars behind me. And I was about 2 miles further down where the streetlights started again, and the rain had stopped. We live in a small city just outside a much bigger city in the UK, which is always busy with a lot of people and noise. Me and my girlfriend were walking back from the shops on a main road at about 5 p.m. It was proper rush hour traffic. Lots of people walking down the street and panicky people, as it was just before Christmas. When suddenly everything kind of stopped. The cars drove along, then just nothing. No more cars coming down the street. No more people apart from one bloke at a bus stop. And it was silent. We kind of stood there for a moment, realizing that it was quiet enough for us to get anxious about breaking the silence. The only thing we could hear were our footsteps and our coats moving as we walked. Where we live has never gone that silent, not even in the early hours of the morning. The other guy looked at us, clearly also being confused, before passing us, and we kept walking. About a minute later, traffic came back, and we could hear people moving and talking. It was strange for a city to go dead silent. Thought I'd share this in case anyone else has had anything like this in a busy area, as it has really thrown me that something like this could happen at the busiest time of the year, in an incredibly built-up area during rush hour. So I posted about 2 weeks ago about an incident involving me and my girlfriend walking home from the shops and everything going silent like time had paused. It's happened again today. I've literally just gotten home from this experience happening. About 20 minutes ago, I started walking to our local corner shop to get a couple essential things we needed. The walk isn't long, only about 5 minutes. But it does take me on a bridge over a busy main road, which leads to a tunnel into the city I live near. It's still been incredibly busy even since the recent lockdown. I got to the shop and got my shopping without incident. Took my headphones out to pay, as I normally chat to whoever is behind the counter, and then I left the shop. This is when it happened. I walked out and didn't realize any change till I got a couple steps away from the shop, and realized I could only hear my footsteps and a strong wind. No cars on the road I was on, but more importantly, no cars going into or out of the tunnel. I walked across the bridge slowly, feeling awkward for breaking the silence with my footsteps. It felt a lot more scary this time, as last time I had my girlfriend with me to share the experience, but this time it just made me feel alone. The experience didn't last as long as last time, only really being about 30 seconds, but honestly it felt to me like it lasted a hell of a lot longer. Cars returned shortly after on both the bridge I was on and the road below. I walked home without headphones as I was quite on edge. There was nothing that scared me, but maybe that was the point. The lack of any noise and being alone really got to me. I'm home now, and I've explained it to my girlfriend, who also finds it very strange. It didn't happen in the same place, and not really the same time. As I said, it's only freshly happened, so if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. This happened to me when I was a teenager, but I still remember it very well. I'm a bit insecure, so I've always tried to stay away from the streets during the day if it's not necessary. I don't like to be seen walking around, so when I go out to exercise around my neighborhood, I do it at night around 10 to 11 p.m., so that there aren't too many people on the street, especially during the week, and if there were, I would be hiding in the shadows. In that way, I feel safer and don't have so much anxiety that I also sometimes have when being in crowded places. Anyways, the fact is that I was running in my neighborhood that is between hills very close to a mountain. There was hardly anyone on the street. A few cars driving around, the weather was warm, some dogs barking in the distance, etc. Everything was normal until I was running up a sloping street. I suddenly felt a strong dizziness in my head, and at the same time I felt a kind of electric shock going through my whole body, which made me shudder, and in a fraction of a second, absolutely everything around me lost its color. Everything was gray, the parked cars, the lights in the houses and street lights, the color of the houses in some apartment complexes, the plants, my clothing, and even my own body was all in different shades of gray. I felt like I was in an old movie where everything is black and white, but here everything was gray. At the same time that all the colors around me disappeared, everything was absolutely awash in a very uncomfortable, strange silence. The only sounds I heard were my footsteps, my voice, and my breathing agitated by exercise. Immediately, I got scared and stopped my running. I didn't know what to think. I thought that something strange had happened to my brain, and that was why I was left without color and didn't hear other sounds external to myself. I closed my eyes tightly, thinking that perhaps I was dreaming while awake, or it was my imagination, and I thought that when I opened them again, everything would return to normal. But no, it wasn't like that. Everything was still gray and without sounds. I approached the window of some houses to see inside them, to see if anyone else was there or if they were seeing what I saw. But surprisingly, there were no people, and everything was gray. Also, everything that was gray became clearer when it was around the lights or the sky, but everything else was still a dark gray. I looked into one after another of these houses and even touched a few of them, but there was no one in that other place that I was experiencing, and soon I realized that there were no more cars driving on the street. No one anywhere. I didn't even see animals, and usually in that street where I was running, in some of the garages there are dogs, but these dogs weren't there either. It was as if I was the only living being in that other place. I was too confused, and I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was in one of those post-apocalyptic or zombie movies where the protagonist is apparently alone. That's exactly how I felt. It was a very difficult feeling to explain. Adrenaline, anxiety, stress, fear, hopelessness, loneliness, uncertainty. All of that was turning around in my confused head, and I couldn't find any logical explanation for what I was having. I yelled for help as loud as I could. Repeatedly yelled, "Help, please help, hello, anyone there? Help!" But nobody answered me. Everything was too silent, too horrible. My concern grew even more when I thought about my parents and my brother, who's a year older than me. Foolishly and without any foundation to prove it, I thought that they would be dead. I don't know, that was the first thing I thought when I remembered them, so I started running as fast as I could in the direction of my parents' house. I was running like this, surrounded by gray and totally alone. In one of the main avenues of my neighborhood, you can see the rest of the city with a panoramic view, and when I did, everything else was also gray. I did not want to go beyond my neighborhood. I didn't dare to leave my area and enter the unknown under such strange conditions. Suddenly, in a fraction of a second, and in a way that I cannot explain, everything went back to normal. The colors, the sound, the people in the houses, the food carts, the animals, Everything was there again, surrounding me. First, I saw the colors and sounds. Shortly after, I heard people inside the houses and a few cars driving around. This in a way calmed me down, but it also scared me a lot because I didn't know what had just happened. When I got home, the first thing I did was hug my parents, and even my brother, because I really came to think that I had lost them forever, and I can't imagine my life without them. I told them what had happened to me, and when I explained it to them, they didn't believe me. They told me that if I wanted to hug them, I didn't need to make up such a silly excuse. But it didn't really matter. I know what happened. It was terrifying and worrying, finding myself totally alone, surrounded by gray. I never knew what happened to me that night, but honestly, it was not pleasant at all. I don't want that experience again. "10 years ago, my husband, his friend, and I went driving around. At the time, my husband had an older blue Honda CR-V. He had a very distinctive sticker on the top left of his car from the first music festival he went to. It was a little parking sticker that they put on his car, and he kept it there because he liked it so much. Anyways, we're driving, and I see another blue CR-V coming up to us on the other side, coming the opposite direction. I didn't really think anything of it until it was coming closer, and I noticed a sticker was in the same spot. Well, when the car passed us, I looked inside the vehicle and time slowed down a bit. I saw all three of us sitting in the same seats and dressed exactly the same. My jaw literally dropped, and the other me looked shocked. They were all looking at me. Same sticker, same everything. The car passed, and I quickly snapped out of it, and I told everyone in the car what had just happened. They said they saw the car, but didn't look inside of it. They thought I was losing my mind. This just happened to me today, and I can't figure it out at all. I'm of sound mind, don't drink or do drugs, and I'm not overly tired. We recently switched my 10-year-old daughter into a new school district. Since we switched after the beginning of the year, they didn't have any coordinating bus routes to pick her up or drop her off, so I drop her off and pick her up daily. Today was exactly the same as any other day, until it wasn't. I dropped her off this morning as usual and went about my day. My daughter's school gets out at 2:50. I have an alarm set on my phone for 2:30 just in case I'm distracted and not paying attention to the clock. Alarm went off, I got myself ready, and I was out the door by 2:40 for the 10-minute drive to pick up my kid. I had the radio on and was driving down a backcountry road to the school when the first weird thing happened. I was zoning out, staring at the road, when it kind of clicked in my brain that the song on the radio was lasting longer than usual. I started paying more attention to it and singing along in my head when the song ended. I figured zoning out just made me lose track of time, when the same song started again. Odd, the radio station must be glitching. Whatever. Just as I was turning down the drive to my daughter's school, the song ended, and then started all over again. I switched the station at this point. I love you, Maroon 5, but come on. I pulled up to the school, which normally has parents waiting for their kids, vehicles everywhere, kids running all over. But today, it was empty. No kids, no parents, no extra cars. I figured I was maybe a little earlier than normal and circled the building. Lap 1, empty. Lap 2, empty. At this point, I'm getting concerned. I decided I would loop around one more time, and if I didn't see anybody, I would park and go inside to see what was going on. Looped around again, and I see a few extra cars that weren't there before, and my daughter standing outside in tears with a building aid. I park by the sidewalk and run to them, thinking that something was really wrong when my daughter cries out, "Mom, I was so scared. Where were you?" I asked her where the heck she was while I was driving in circles. Her and the aide agreed. She was outside waiting for me. She had been standing there for half an hour waiting for me, while all the other kids were getting picked up. There's no way that 3 laps around the building would have taken more than 5 minutes. And why didn't I see any kids outside at all? Every single time I drove back by the elementary pickup area, it was completely empty. And how did I lose half an hour? My mind is completely blown by all of this, and I can't find any reasonable explanations. So I stepped outside on my porch to smoke a cigarette. I live in a tiny neighborhood off of a busy road, and traffic is always going. I noticed that traffic on both sides of the road had come to a dead halt. At first, I thought there was a roadblock, but there was nothing indicating that. Traffic just stopped. Then I started noticing that there was absolutely no sound outside. I usually hear birds because we have a lot in the neighborhood, and even in winter they're chirping all day, but I didn't hear anything. It was also raining before I stepped outside, and I noticed that it stopped as well. There wasn't any sound or movement at all. Everything just looked frozen. It was super odd, and I don't know how else to explain it. It only lasted a few minutes, but it really freaked me out. Any ideas? This happened to me 10 years ago, and it was so intense I still remember it. But it's hard to put into words what it was really like. I was in a holiday home with my parents, and they were having an afternoon nap. So I was in my room reading when suddenly everything around me started feeling a little off. I know I definitely didn't dream this because at the time I had trouble falling asleep, so I didn't even try to take a nap. I was looking around the room and seeing it from a neutral outside perspective, with no context, as if I'd never been there before. I couldn't remember which country I was in, or comprehend the concept of countries in general. It felt like I was in someone else's soul, born into my body and my life, not knowing what was going on or who I was supposed to be. So I got up from the bed and walked to the mirror on the other side of the room. I stared at it for a few minutes, but didn't recognize myself. All I saw was a random person wearing a green Hello Kitty nightie. No, I wasn't a toddler. I was just a teenager with a special fashion sense. My eyes looked kind of weird as well, like they weren't in focus, but I could see my reflection clearly. In that moment, I had a voice in my head telling me, "You are dead." So I believed that. I wasn't scared though, I just accepted it. My body felt light and insubstantial, like a ghost. After about 5 minutes, everything went back to normal. My parents woke up and I had dinner with them, and was a little surprised that they were treating me like a normal person. Ever since then, I can't really shake the feeling that I've been replaced. I changed schools after that holiday and had a completely different personality at the new school. A much louder and more obnoxious one, as opposed to being quiet and shy. I later learned that things like this can happen on drugs. Ego death, seeing things neutrally and without judgment, experiencing everything as if for the first time. But I was sober and hadn't even had any experiences with alcohol at this point in my life. I've never told my parents about what happened, but still trying to find explanations. This happened the other night. I was driving across my city to get something I bought on Craigslist, and I had my phone on speaker giving me directions because it was an unfamiliar area. It was around 7 at night and pitch black, and in the middle of the next command, the assistant did something really odd. The voice got stuck on a syllable and stretched it out for about 10 seconds, into a kind of panicked moan, almost a croak. I also wear a smartwatch that buzzes when a turn is coming up in navigation, and it started to buzz continuously as the assistant continued to make this extremely distressing sound. I was shaken and pulled off to the side of the road for a moment to look at my phone and see if something was going on with it. It appeared to be functioning normally. I gave myself about 10 minutes to calm down and then got back on the road. At the turn where my assistant had originally instructed me to bear left, I saw flashing lights, and it looked like there had been a moderately serious car wreck. Old story, a little short, but I remember it as clear as day. When I was in high school, my dad was driving me to school. It was an early morning and we were on a stretch of road with nowhere to turn left or right for about a mile. This was a 2-lane street, us on the left. I remember my dad being upset because this bus had swapped lanes and was riding our car's ass. I looked through the side mirror and saw the bus right on our tail. My dad was particularly mad because we were the only 2 cars on this road. So why would they need to ride us, especially if they were in the other lane? So he switched lanes to let the bus pass. It never did. The bus was gone. I noticed it, then my dad did too, and we swore up and down there was nowhere for it to be because it was a mile stretch with no turns. The craziest part was the bus was headed towards my school, and the rest of the drive there were no buses that came into view. So I went to throw something in the trash, came back in and closed the door. My cats usually like to escape, especially Tuxedo, so I thought he got out. He hadn't. He had just woken up from a nap, but I was sure something went by me. I heard some wrestling downstairs, but I ignored it because I thought it was the tenants downstairs. We live in a duplex. Came back again, closed the door again, went to look for my other cat, called his name. Nothing. So I'm thinking he got out. Like I said, I live in a duplex. So there's the upstairs apartment where I live, and there's a downstairs apartment. Everything is connected by steps to get to the basement. And there's a window on the second floor that you can look out of to see across the neighbor's yard. I looked up for maybe just 30 seconds and I saw a glitch in the outside. And by glitch, I mean how you see static on a TV and it goes back and forth from right to left. And it did that, just for a split second. So the sky was sunny and bright, and then the whole sky turned to sky blue. Surrounding the backyard of the neighbors next door, everything just turned blue for a quick second. I immediately thought we're all in a simulation, and I definitely went off this ride. I just wanted to share because I thought it was interesting. In college, me and my boyfriend fell asleep after picnicking on a rooftop. Suddenly, I opened my eyes a little, and I saw people having some kind of party around us, eating and chatting, and they were blue. I tried to listen to what they were talking about, but I couldn't understand. I thought it was a dream, and I was so sleepy, so I continued to sleep. Then I woke up and thought maybe it was a dream, because why would people suddenly have a party around you? I tried to forget about it. Then me and my boyfriend go to a nearby mall. Suddenly my boyfriend asked, "Did you see what I saw on the rooftop?" I was shook. He saw it too, and he also thought it was real people at first. He also saw it in blue, as if there was a blue filter around us. He also thought it was a dream, and that's why he hesitated to ask me at first. I think we both shifted to a different dimension when we were sleeping. We also agreed that the people around us saw us, since we both saw them kind of bending over to check if we were sleeping. We were sleeping on the ground and opened our eyes just a bit, but still pretended to be asleep. My guess is that they knew we were there, but they thought we were still sleeping. Did these beings show themselves because of that? Any thoughts?